Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Brazos River Saints Podcast. Today, I have Sheriff L on.
Hello.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
You're welcome.
I mean, I figured that since you've been trying to get so many other people on the podcast, that it'd probably be best if maybe you are also on the podcast.
Yeah, probably. Not a bad idea. I was going to be the fill-in one, so when we couldn't get anybody, then we're like, oh, I guess it'll be me.
Right. So, you know the drill. You've watched enough of these. You're familiar with them.
I need the questions still.
Right. Tell us about yourself. What makes you so awesome? Tell us about Sheriff L and what makes Sheriff L Sheriff L and why Sheriff L is so amazing.
My name is a double verb. That's kind of amazing.
That's
Sheriff
true.
L.
That's true.
You're the one that pointed it out to me.
Right. I don't remember doing that, but I believe, yes, I probably did point it out.
I'm pretty amazing. I grew up in, at least I think so. I grew up in Oregon. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. My family isn't super active. I have a couple brothers, a brother and a sister that are active. My mom. My dad died when I was young. I was 16. My dad passed away. I went to BYU, Idaho for 2 years. I actually went to Rick's College for 1 year, and then BYU, Idaho the second year, in the middle of the transition. That was kind of cool. Then I went to Boise State, and I met a guy. Fell in love. He's just out of the Army. He was pretty handsome.
Mm-hmm.
We got married in Idaho Falls. I went through leukemia. Have 2 kids that are pretty amazing. That's one thing I feel like the Lord has really blessed us, and I think you would agree 100%, with some amazing souls. I mean, I know that parenting has a little bit to do with it, but not much. The Lord has blessed us with some amazing children. For some reason, I feel like we did something special in the pre-existence to have them be part of our family. And lived in Carlsbad for a while. Now we're here in Texas, and I'm loving living in Texas, other than it's 95 degrees in April.
Yeah, it's a little warm. Carlsbad.
Anyway, I lived in Carlsbad.
New Mexico?
Yes, Carlsbad,
Okay.
New Mexico.
I'm just checking because when sometimes we go on vacation and people are like, where are you from? We're like, whoa, we're from Carlsbad. And they're like, oh,
I love California.
right. And then we're like, yeah, we don't love California. Just kidding.
No, and
Just kidding.
Carlsbad is an interesting place if you've never been there. The Carlsbad Caverns are amazing. The people are super friendly, super great. The area is not so much.
It's a culture shock.
It is a culture. It's a different culture.
It's a different.
But I grew a lot there. I grew in lots of ways. The adventures we had living there, and so my best friend. I made some really good friends. I met my best friend there. She just passed away on Tuesday, and so I'm getting ready to leave for a funeral. And there's some amazing people there. My kids were pretty much raised there, and so
Yeah.
that's their home.
You know, funny thing about you going to BYU, Idaho, or Rick's College, I guess, when you went there.
Okay.
So when we got married, she was digging through my yearbook one day, and she was like, hey, I went on a date with that guy, and I went on a date with that guy, and I went on a date with that guy, and I went on...
There was only 3. Stop
Whatever.
it. There was 3.
She was digging through my yearbook, and she's like, I went on a date with everyone in your yearbook.
The 3 people. That was kind of cool.
It was kind of funny.
I had a prom picture with a guy that I really liked.
Yeah.
So, that I had really liked. I didn't still like him at the time. But.
Well, right, because we had gotten married, so
yeah,
obviously.
I know.
She likes me more.
Anyway.
Right. I forgot what other questions I asked people.
It's all different when you're interviewing your wife, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to ask at this point.
That's okay.
Because I know you.
I know.
So tell us about, why don't you tell us what everyone else in church talked about today? Why don't you tell us a time in your life when you felt the power of Jesus Christ in your life?
There's a lot of times in my life. And most of those times I didn't notice at the time. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. I don't think we notice it at the time until afterward. And you're like, oh, but the Lord definitely had a hand in that event. So there was a couple. I mean, like I said a minute ago, my children, watching my children and the faith that they have and the people that they have become, I know that like the Lord had a hand in how we raised them and how we have, and they're not raised yet, and they won't be for very, very long time. That the Lord has had a huge hand in who they are and developing who they are. I was writing things down on my phone today during sacrament, just praying that the bishop didn't call on me. I was hoping he wouldn't because I had to get up last time, but now I can't remember what I wrote down. But that was one of them. Like I'd mentioned, I went through leukemia. That was some major miracles happened through the hand of the Lord.
Like every day.
Yeah, it seemed like every day. People came out of the woodwork. Our ward was a very, they call it newlywed or nearly dead ward.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. Not completely.
Everybody was really old. There was a couple really young families. We were one of the young families, and
there were very few middle-aged families in the ward.
I remember the Relief Study president telling me that they've dealt with people with cancer before, but they've never dealt with someone that had babies at home, and they weren't sure what to do. And they did a lot. They were amazing. They will hold a place. Now I can't think of what the Idaho Falls 13th ward.
Yeah. Well, the Idaho Falls 13th ward does no longer exist.
That's right. It doesn't exist. But they will hold a place in my heart. The people there. I had a 1.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old at home, and they came out of the woodwork. They did our yard work. They painted our deck. They finished. I had a beautiful garden. They came out. The young women came out and weeded my garden because I was in the hospital for so long. The people, the blessings that were given, the people, the support. My mom came and lived with us for 6 months. I mean, what kind of mom can just drop whatever she's doing and move to a different state and live with her daughters while she goes through 6 months of treatment? But the Lord really did play a huge part in that. All of it. He orchestrates amazingly. Everything falls into place.
That's what I learned the power of praying about your tithing.
Yeah. Go ahead and expand on that.
So, well, we had a, when you were first put into the hospital with leukemia, the hospital just kind of covered the costs. We didn't see numbers, right? We had no idea. And then they released you from the hospital, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you got to take this medication, and here's the cost." And it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money, and
not just for poor college students. Right. It was a lot of money for most people.
Right, and so I took the tithing I had, which was very little. I was working like I wouldn't even call it part time. I was working part-time. I was working like 15 hours a week. And so my paychecks were very small, and it's all I had. So I prayed over my tithing and I said, "Hey, Heavenly Father, I'm paying this, and this is what I need." And it's interesting because the windows of heaven open like the Malachi measure. You pay your tithing, you get the Malachi measure.
What's that?
Well, it's the you cannot measure it.
Okay.
The Malachi measure, the windows of heaven open so much, and blessings pour out that you can't measure it. That's why it's the Malachi measure.
Okay.
Immeasurable.
Immeasurable. Gotcha.
Anyway, so I never saw a penny. I never saw money come in. But the need was met, and that, and the people who helped there and participated in meeting that need, will always have a place in my heart. And there was a talk actually given by Elder Elder Holland. I'm sorry. There's a talk given by Elder Holland in 2014 called "Are We Not All Beggars?" And that one was very powerful for me because, and also the one that he gave in 2013, and the one that he gave in 2012. But it seemed that General Conference became a very important thing for me at that time as well. But yeah, so we paid our tithing, and the bishop actually came to me one day and said, "Hey, you haven't been in to talk to me yet, and I've been waiting for you to come and tell me how much money you need because I know that there's no way." And I said, "Bishop, I paid my tithing this week, and everything I need is going to be taken care of. And if it's not, I'll come tell you." And I remember the look on his face still today. It's pretty intense.
Bishop Holder's pretty
It's
amazing.
pretty awesome.
He was.
But I intended to interview my wife, and I started to cry here.
But you can't talk about this experience without both of us being affected, our whole family being affected,
Right.
Through this. Like I said, we were young. I was 29, and we were all affected, and we all learned from it. My kids, even at that young age, have maybe not recollections, but they've learned a lot from it. I don't ever remember going hungry. I don't remember how. I didn't deal with a lot of that. I was sick and I don't remember a lot of that time. And so he dealt with the brunt of it. That's one thing I did. Another thing we learned from that experience is that the caregiver goes through probably more sometimes than the sick person. So they need lots of love out there. So, if you know of somebody, that caregiver needs a lot of love. So,
So you made me cry. Hold on.
Sorry.
Let me wipe it.
Let me go on. Another time.
Let me wipe my tears from my eyes.
My life. That I felt the hand of the Lord so many times. Just recently.
Well, I mean, okay, let's walk it down.
Okay.
Let's walk it down.
Walk it down.
So leukemia happens, and it was like a daily thing. It really changed how we looked at the gospel and how we viewed our relationship with God. Changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And there came a point, even like it was in 2013, our washer just like broke, and I was done. Like it was like the Nephi's bow broke, and Lehi's like, "Forget this crap, I'm going home." Right. And even Lehi started to murmur, and I'm not comparing myself to Lehi because I don't feel like I'm that awesome, but I gave up, and I just wanted to quit. And I remember going and talking to you and say, "Look, I'm done. I don't want to belong to this church if this means that this is my life, that everything I do just turns to garbage all the time. I can't do this anymore." And you said, just give me one more day. Just go to church with me tomorrow. And if you still feel like that at the end of the day, then okay, I'll support you in it. And well, I still go to church now. So I should tell you how that turned out. But so that was
I remember that moment, and I was prepared to not go to church anymore with you and be supportive. And it just kind of happened. And
then after that,
you went to church that Sunday, and someone gave a talk that touched your heart.
No, it was Fast and Testimony meeting.
That's what it was. And someone. Yeah.
And the one thing, man, it's gonna make me cry again.
It's okay. It's all right to cry. Be vulnerable.
So one of the things about the Idaho Falls 13th Ward is they're really good about serving up humble pie. They're like masters. And although they don't exist anymore as the Idaho Falls 13th Ward, they're the Idaho Falls Highland Park Ward. And the boundaries have changed a bit since we were there. But man, they were so good at just bringing it back to just the basics and taking the pride away and just saying, "Look, this is what it is." And yeah.
Sorry. No, like I said, they're going to have a forever place because of the things of learning that we met in those young years of our life.
Right.
So, and I'm grateful that I've learned to had those learning experiences that young and not having to deal with it now. So,
well, I mean, yeah,
we do have our things. We do have our things.
Right. But
so then go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say. Right.
So you said you were bringing it back, and then so we left. We ended up having to leave Carlsbad. I mean,
right,
leave Idaho Falls.
But we moved to Carlsbad because God told us to.
Yeah.
And we both knew that. We both felt that.
We had job offers in North Carolina and Carlsbad, New Mexico. South Carolina, sorry. And
I'm like, we're going to South Carolina.
That's beautiful.
Like,
and
I'm
God
not going
said, sorry.
I'm not going to New Mexico. That place is ugly. And South Carolina is amazing.
Yeah. So we went to the temple and God told us both significantly.
And there was a temple within,
Stop.
Anyway. So it's Carlsbad, New Mexico, because obviously that's where people would go when, you have two offers on the table. Yeah.
But it was hard. Carlsbad was hard. It
was.
So I cried when we pulled into town because it was just dry and flat. And
you cried. You cried by the time we pull off in Klein's Corners and go down.
Okay, before I got to Carlsbad, I started crying.
She starts crying, and she calls me, and she's like, because we were driving
separate cars.
Different cars. She calls me, and she's like, and she was crying, and she's like, tell me that this isn't the way this is. Tell me that this doesn't all look like this. And I'm like, well, no, it's there's a mountain next to Carlsbad.
He lies.
It's not a mountain. It's like a hill, but nonetheless.
Anyway, but we had challenges, but it's all about challenges. That's how I felt the hand of the Lord in my life is through these challenges.
It's interesting, and I say this just because we had our good friends here this last weekend
from Carlsbad.
And he pointed out very clearly, he's like, every time God tells you to do something, you just go do it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because
what else are we going to do?
What else am I going to do? It always turns out really well whenever we just do whatever he says.
It does. And it always has. I mean.
So I got the job. I got a job offer in Los Alamos, and we went up there, and quite frankly, I don't think there was. I mean, it would have been fine. There really was no reason for us to move, because there were options in Los Alamos. If I didn't like where I was, I could go somewhere else. There was an option, and and the Spirit was like, nope, get out of here, go. And I remember. Yeah. I gave a talk and I stood up and I said, well, we're going to go back to Carlsbad, New Mexico. We got the God told us we have to go back to Carlsbad, New Mexico. So I'm going to pack up my children and take them into the wilderness, and I'm patiently awaiting the delivery of Liahona.
Don't know where we're going, but Liahona will appear.
But anyway, so we've done everything that God has asked us to do.
That we've been perceptive to. I feel like that there's times where the Lord has talked to us and we haven't been perceptive, and we haven't listened because we haven't opened.
I always
there's probably times, I'm sure. Like I said, I haven't always been super active in the church. I haven't always been this active. So at times, I only went because I knew my kids wanted to go to primary, and that's what I went to church for.
Right, but interesting. We actually talked about that in Elders Quorum today.
Oh, did you?
A little bit, but I didn't say that.
Oh. Okay.
In Elders Quorum, but it's the sometimes you go out of a sense of duty or out of a sense of necessity, but not necessarily because you want to.
Yeah.
And that's better than not. So
I remember one of my primary kids when we were in Idaho Falls 13th Ward before I had leukemia. I was teaching primary, and she didn't want to come. I'm sure she didn't want to come, and she didn't want to come to class. And so it was January as soon as the changeover had started, and I said, "Are you coming to class?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna go with my mom." And I said, "Yeah, I get it. I don't always want to be here either." She's like, "You don't?" I'm like, "No. Sometimes I come because my kids tell me to. Sometimes I come because I feel like I need to. But you know what? It always turns out really good." And I loved it because she came to my class almost every week after that.
Yeah,
that was a learning point. I'm learning how to be vulnerable with people and be honest.
Yeah,
be honest and open and vulnerable with people, and they.
Well, I think part of that is that we're all kind of in our own journey, and the one amazing thing about this probationary state we call mortality is that it's catered to us, even though we're on the same planet. So we can each have our own experiences. You can go to the temple and have a completely ridiculous spiritual experience, and the person right next to you can just have an awful time, and it's all a matter of attitude, and it's all a matter of perception.
Yeah.
But in that case where you're vulnerable, you're just saying, hey, look, I understand that you're not spiritually on the journey in the place where I am now, or where I want to be, but I feel I understand what you're saying. I appreciate that, And that, I think
Yeah,
that means a lot.
Yeah, we had that. We just talked about that on an activity we did in Relief Study recently. And I said, we're talking about being vulnerable. And I said, you know what? We have to let people know what's going on in our lives. And when they say, how are you doing today at church on Sunday? I can't remember what I said, but I said something to the effect of, don't lie. Be honest. You know what? I'm just glad that I walked through the doors this morning.
Right.
I don't want to expand upon it, but I showed up and I'm happy about that.
That's 90% of the battle.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just glad I'm here. And you can do it and be positive and happy.
Yep. For those college students who didn't go to class, you'll learn that lesson that just showing up,
That's right.
is 90% of the battle.
That was I remember I was going to say my other thing spiritually lately. Recently, I started working in the temple on Thursday mornings, and I have a new love of maybe just I get better testimony of the temple. I know that once I get in the car and start driving, that my day is going to be awesome because I'm going to be centered. Go in the temple, and my only thought in there is about being a Christ-like person, making other people feel like they are welcomed and to feel welcome with myself. So I felt the Spirit a lot. I get to do that every week, and that's pretty awesome. It's a lot. It's more of an impact in my life than I thought it would be. I'm glad I'm doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
I would encourage everyone to go be temple workers.
That's right, if you can. Or even just patrons as much as you can.
Yeah. It doesn't work out for my work schedule, so
yeah.
I'd be trying to find people to cover my shift all the time. So that's why I don't do it. But
yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
Yep.
I don't know what other things people would like to know about me. We've been married for 20 years. 21 years.
Oh, really?
We have.
Wow.
He's pretty lucky that I stayed with him that long.
Yeah. There was one time when we had a wedding anniversary and like we both forgot. And we went to bed and you're like, hey, what day is it? And I'm like, hey, it's this day. And you were like, oh, we got married this day. And I was like, oh.
That's right.
And then you're like, should we do anything? And we're like, nope, let's just go to sleep. And we went,
we'll get it next year.
That's fine.
Yeah. So what else about us? I have a little embroidery business that I just do little word of mouth stuff here and there.
She likes to sew.
I do like to sew, make quilts. I don't do clothing.
So.
Yes. He named my company So Design. It was great. I love my chickens. You've all probably seen my chickens outside the back of the church. So
we have a rooster that likes to make noise.
He does like to, he's not crowing right now. You probably heard him in some of the other videos. I love my chickens. Emily, they're more pets than
yeah. I was gonna say Emily likes to carry them around.
She does. She is known to have chickens in her arms in my living room on the couch.
Yeah, but when Rooster is and his name's Rooster Cogburn, by the way, in case anyone wants to know, that's why we keep calling him Rooster, because it's his name, Rooster Cogburn.
Love Rooster Cogburn.
like John Wayne. John Wayne. Anyway,
or the cartoon Cogburn.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So
sorry.
We digress. When Emily decides to bring Rooster Cogburn in and pet him, he will cuddle up to her and just chill with her and hang out with her.
Put his little head on her shoulder.
Yep.
It's pretty dang cute.
But then,
if anybody wants pictures, I have them.
She does.
Sorry, keep going.
She does.
Going.
But then all of a sudden he'll be done and he'll just stand up and just crow and then you're like, what the crap? What is happening right now?
No, I love my chickens. I love living here. I love living next to the church. That was when we moved here, I said we either have to live right next to his work or right next to the church. And luckily, we found a place along the way to his work next to the church.
Right?
So for those of you who don't know, we live right next to the church.
Yeah, it's actually really convenient. Not just being next to the church, but just the high school's not far. The schools are not far.
This location is great.
The Walmart's not that far. And so even when there's terrible traffic in Granbury, we're like, oh, I can get there.
Yeah.
And then
it's a great little place.
And then it's
there's no HOA.
Instead of taking a left to go into Granbury, I can take a right, go straight to work. Oh, and there's no HOA. Oh my goodness. I know some of you guys are like, why wouldn't you not want to live in HOA? It's a personal preference.
Yeah.
I really like it.
What else? I know this hasn't really,
I don't know.
Okay, my message to people. And I know we don't have to end. But
hold on. No.
Okay, go ahead.
Before
Sorry.
you get to that one, you just hold on to that.
Okay.
Bottle it up.
It's bottled. Go ahead.
But you can't hide it. As a matter of fact, you can't hide anything from God. But talk to me about the Book of Mormon. Oh, just tell me something awesome about the Book of Mormon.
My dad had this immense love for the Book of Mormon. My dad he wrote, my fans, like I said, he passed away when I was 16. But we passed around his scriptures. And I have them right now. I don't want to give them back. But in the front cover, he has where every time he reads it straight through, he'll write the date he starts and the date he ended. And so I love looking at that. Just his, seeing just the times how much he loved reading it, and it has it marked up. And he encouraged me to read the Book of Mormon when we turn 8. He encourages us. He wants us to read the Book of Mormon before we get baptized. And my sister tells a story about she's had this immense love of the Book of Mormon since she was 8. I did not. The Book of Mormon was confusing to me. It would have just these little stories, and that's it. There wasn't any type of rhyme or reason to them. But then I got married, and this guy kind of teaches really well, and he helped me make sense of, he helped me make sense. And I guess maybe it's my children, reading it with my children out loud. And we'd be like, okay, where is this? And what is this time frame? And it helped just kind of put things in order. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there is a rhyme and reason to the way that the Book of Mormon is put together. And so it's kind of giving me that testimony of God again, seeing God's hand in all things. Even, back in something AD before Christ's birth, all these prophets recording things, and they all flow really well together. They were all inspired. God inspired them all. I actually have more.
If you thought the Book of Mormon was confusing, then you should check out the Old Testament.
Okay, like I said earlier, I just realized that the God of the Old Testament is Jesus. Like right. I just learned that, and I am 40. I don't know how old I am. I'm in my 40s.
I thought she knew that.
No, but we assume that people know stuff, and they don't. So
right.
Anyway, I do have a testimony of the Book of Mormon. I enjoy reading it. I love reading it with my children. I love the joys, the stories, and just seeing God's hand in everything within it. It's been pretty amazing. I love that my family has a fascination with Captain Moroni and Helaman. Sorry.
Your son has a fascination with Captain Moroni.
Yes, my son, and it is rubbed off onto some of the rest of us. And
but I will point out that I had to explain that Captain Moroni and Moroni at the end of the Book of Mormon
are not the same person.
Are two different people.
Not to one of us. It's just to somebody else online.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't to us.
Oh, I thought it was.
We knew that. It was somebody else online.
I just explained it? Yeah, some guy online.
Yeah, they're not the same person. So.
And he was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, look at the timeline."
Just because their name is Moroni does not mean that they are the same person. So, anyway, I have a testimony of the Book of Mormon, and seeing God's hand in everything. And I look forward to someday seeing other scriptures that have not been available to us this day. That's going to confuse some people, but someday there might be more revealed to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
We just have to learn how to take advantage of what has already been revealed to us.
Yeah. Those prophets.
Right. Okay, so now you can share if you had one thing to say to the ward. They all had to listen because
I don't remember now.
Oh, well, I told you to bottle it up.
It fizzed out.
You can let it out.
My one thing to share, there's several. I'm pretty.
I'm just kidding.
I'm pretty set. My big push is that we're not perfect. So when you come to my house is going to be kind of dirty. It's not really dirty usually, but it's going to be, there's going to be some dirty socks on the floor maybe. I have a child that likes to leave their socks on the floor. There's going to be stuff on the counters. And
I have a wife that likes to leave her sewing stuff on the table.
I do leave my sewing projects out on the table. I cleared it off just for today.
Yep.
And as a kid, I grew up, I remember my mom, we had this really long driveway and we kind of lived out in the country. And I remember on multiple occasions hearing the bishop's coming. Because, we weren't super active. And so, well, my mom was active. But anyway, we would have to rush and like scrub the house as fast as we can and throw dirty dishes in the oven and try. If my bishop needs a perfect house, he shouldn't come to my house. All right, Bishop Patton? So and my husband I've asked him to help me remember that it's not important. Who cares? I know God doesn't care if my house is clean. God doesn't care if my face is perfect. God doesn't care about those types of things. Not really. And so I have to not worry about it because the stress that it brings to me is not worth it. And that I can still have friends. I can still have people over. I can still not be perfect and have friends, have people.
We're just trying.
Yeah. I had an experience the same, and that happened actually that time when the stake president and a member of the 70 came to our house when they were at bishop hunting.
I remember that.
And he called and said, I'm going to be there in an hour with this member of the 70. And I freaked out. Yeah. I like cried. I'm like, they can't come over. I just cried. And yeah, they were. And he's like, so what? Who cares? And so we had a long discussion about it. And
they were definitely bishop hunting.
They were bishop hunting.
But it's interesting. And I'm sure that Bishop Patton can explain this probably just as much as I can, or anyone else who's been a bishop. Even though I've never been a bishop, is that, like I knew for months that my name was being considered for that position, and they were there like it was like you're going to be the guy, and I'm like, I'm sorry guys, I'm actually moving.
We're moving, yeah.
Like that, God told us to leave, so
we're not it.
So that was weird, and it makes me wonder though. Like it makes me really wonder. Had we just said, you know what, if you want me to be the bishop, then God will figure it out, and we'll stay. We'll figure it out. Yeah. But I don't know, like, because I had the impression that you're going to have to go, and so
yeah, we did what we're supposed to.
So I don't know. That one's the one that's always been a conundrum to me. But at the same time, I can't complain about
what happened.
What happens?
Yeah, so. We digressed. Anyway, that story. Sorry. That's where I've gotten to where I asked my husband after this long discussion in that hour between the time that the member of 70 was coming to our house about me not freaking out over things, that it's too much stress. Who cares? And I asked my husband, and he doesn't do it very often, but just remind me that it doesn't matter. And it came back to bite me in the butt one time. We're living in this house, and we went, and because I tell my kids that all the time. I try to like have this relaxed atmosphere that it's, you don't have to be perfect. We make mistakes. We're anyway. And we were going to a Tuesday night activity for Relief Society, and we run out the door. Emily and I, it was a young woman, were invited, and we start walking over to the church, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wearing my pajama bottoms. I have to go change. And my daughter says to me, who cares, Mom? That was really hard. And so I went to this Relief Society activity in my pajamas because she's right. Nobody cares. I don't know if anybody noticed I was in my pajamas. Luckily I was modest enough. But not that anyway, and who cares?
Yeah.
That's my philosophy, I think, with things. So who cares? You know that I am not perfect. My friends out there watching this podcast, I make lots of mistakes in my life. And so now that you know that, we can be friends because everybody needs a friend. Everybody.
Yeah.
And not just someone passing in church on Sunday, which those are nice too. But everybody needs a friend, and everybody thinks that they don't have friends and they need a friend. That's my message today. Everybody needs some friendly support. So the way this works is usually I'm behind the camera and I come over and I hit the stop button. But we had my children hit start today, and so as I'm speaking, they're supposed to be standing up and coming to hit the stop button.
Here she comes.
She's coming.
She's coming quietly.
Bye. Anyway, hold on, Emily.
Wait. So thanks for joining us on the Brazos River Saints podcast today.
It's been an interesting one.
It has. Because I was intended to interview you.
I know. Sorry.
And then you got me talking about stuff.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
It's a podcast.
If anybody has questions to me,
you can write them in the comments.
Yeah, or just ask me or text me.
Her. Whatever.
Yeah.
We'll answer them.
Any follow-up questions would be great.
And I firmly believe that everyone should have the opportunity to say no to be on the Brazos River Saints podcast. And that's okay. We've gotten a few of those, and that's fine. But
A few. Sorry, go ahead.
But we would really like to hear from you. And if you have concerns or just things that you're not comfortable with, then just come talk to us. Maybe you just want to have a recording for a family history thing, and you don't want to put it online, and that's fine. I would love to help you do that. I don't necessarily have to be in it. By any means, you don't have to have me as part of your family history, but I would help you to do that because I think it's important. And I would say this when it comes to family history, is that when I look back at my ancestors and their stories, the ones who have something written down, you feel a lot closer to, you feel a connection to. And even if it's just a couple pages, even if it's just one page, just a few pages is all it takes. And so imagine what you could do with, a 5-minute video or a 10-minute video or even an hour-long video. I'm going to
interrupt real fast. A question that we've gotten a lot with, because I help try to find people to be on the podcast. People are like, I may share things I don't want published, which is fine. We can cut that out. We don't have to publish that. Or if you get in and you're doing an interview and you're like, I didn't like how that turned out, we don't have to publish it. You can just have it.
Right.
So
it's fine.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks for listening to that little rant. But we will see you next time on the Brazos River Saints podcast.
Bye.
Bye.